Let's face it, most financial books are boring. Let's go ahead and say it. I mean, they're like good Valiums. They're guaranteed to put you to sleep. But not this book, How Money Works. And I'm joined now by the author, Steve Siebold, joins us now. And Steve, you're a different kind of cat. In our little brief conversation during the commercial break, I could tell you have personality, unlike most financial experts. That's kind of how your book works, right? If I can keep you entertained, I can teach you a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. My co-author and I, Tom Matthews, wrote the book really for a 14-year-old kid, John. So the average person could really understand the basics of financial literacy that we don't learn in school.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those other books real quickly, though. It seems to me that they're written for other financial experts, and they go over my head, so they lose me after about a chapter or two. But you guys decided to make this very applicable and information that people can understand. I love that philosophy.
Completely. You're completely right. The old joke in the financial world is the financial books are written for other financial people to read them because no one can understand them other than them. You have to be a financial expert to understand most financial books. And the financial industry wants it that way, John, because the more ignorant we are, the richer they get.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, you said it's the missing piece that no one ever taught you. So I know this is probably more involved and it's going to be a little bit more lengthy than the time that we have, but some of those missing pieces, what is missing as far as our financial knowledge?
Well, just like basic things, like again, things that you can understand at maybe 13 or 14 years old, like compound interest. If you ask 100 people on the street to explain compound interest, they may say they understand it. But when you ask them, the studies show that they don't really understand it. And it's basically interest that accrues upon interest and that, gathers on interest. But it's a major concept because if you're saving, it works for you. If you're borrowing, it works against you.
7 money milestones. A little overview of what exactly is 7 money milestones and what information should we gather from that?
Well, that's really the core of the book, is really learning what the 7 money milestones are. And the first one's probably the most important, and that's just to get a basic financial education. You don't have to learn how to trade derivatives on Wall Street. We're not talking about major high finance. For most of us, all we need are the basics. So you want to educate yourself financially. So when you work with a financial professional, which I recommend, you understand what you're purchasing and what you need and what you don't need.
We all want to be financially secure, and I think there comes a time in your life, like where I am, that I worry, am I too late to make a financial difference in my retirement? Is it ever too late, Steve?
No, it certainly helps to start young. Obviously, we all know that, except, of course, youth is wasted on the young, as we always say. So, no, it's not really too late. It depends, whatever age you are, there are products and there are services that can really help you. But again, you have to understand what you're investing and what you're buying. But no, it's not too late. And most of us are behind, of course, for various reasons. But we need to start today, not yesterday. And getting a basic financial education is the first step.
I know there's a lot of misconceptions, untruths about finances, and we all hear them every day. But if you could give me one that say a lot of people believe this and it's just not true, what would that be, Steve?
That's a great question, John. I would say probably that money is difficult to earn, because I think because of what you just said, that you're starting late. A lot of us are starting late with saving for retirement, that type of thing. And people say, well, how am I going to save myself into retirement? Well, you're probably not. You're probably going to have to earn more money. But money is not really difficult to earn in a free market economy because it's based on solving problems. And the bigger problem you solve, the more money you make. And that's really all it comes down to. So maybe looking at entrepreneurship could be a viable solution for many of us.
In the next segment, Steve, we're going to talk a little bit about differences that couples have when they talk about finances, husband and wives. And, we all know that that's sometimes the source of arguments when you start talking about finances and moving forward. Why is that? Why is that a common, a confrontational conversation between couples? What do you think that arrives from?
John, if I was smart enough to answer that question, I'd be a billionaire, I'll tell you right now. You have to be married for 36 years. You have those conversations. There's that push and pull with money. But to seriously answer your question, I think my theory is, I certainly don't know, but I think that maybe it's because we have these different beliefs about money. And so when those beliefs clash, then conflict ensues and everything starts on a downward spiral.
All right, so in the next segment, we're going to talk about couples. But before we go, Steve, I want to tell everyone, I think they already understand the fact that it's very easy to understand that you're fun to talk to, you're easy to listen to, and your book reads much the same way. So for folks who are watching now and they want to get a hold of your book, where should they go?
Amazon.com, and they can also visit howmoneyworks.com.
All right. Once again, Steve Siebold. Coming up in the next segment, yes, we'll talk about couples and the differences they have about money and how you can actually ease that conversation, ease into the conversation, and actually come up with viable solutions. Next on Wave 3 Listens Live. The name of the book is How Money Works. The author, Steve Siebold, joins us via Zoom. We appreciate Steve's expertise. Steve, we promised to talk about couples and money. I found it interesting that you said actually two different money philosophies is a blessing in disguise. How so?
Well, I think it's almost like having two political parties, even whether, which party you're on, which side you're on. You kind of meet in the middle somewhere. And I think there's some real value to that because maybe someone has a belief about they should spend more. They're kind of spendthrifts and the other person's really conservative with money. And then you kind of meet in the middle because there is something to be said for living your life and, getting the things you want and that type of thing. And then there's also obviously a big argument for being more conservative.
Yeah, whenever things get a little confrontational, you mentioned something, and I think it's even more true perhaps when you're talking about finances. You said pick your battles. So what is a battle worthy of fighting?
Yeah, anyone who's been married for over 10 minutes knows this one, right, John? I mean, you definitely have to pick your battles, which fight you want to really pursue. So the concept here, the idea here was just that if it's something small, then maybe let that one go. But if it's something that's really going to hurt you financially, which is easy to do, it's easy to spend money, especially, with Amazon out there and, one click of the button and you can spend $1 million. It's pretty simple to do. That you might want to pick that fight, but maybe let the little financial things go.
I thought it was interesting, too, that, I understand that you want to have a nest egg and everyone's interested in your financial future, but you said experiences are important, things like travel and dining out. You think those may be worthy of spending a little money. How does that work, and how do you save money for those experiences?
Well, I think so many of the marriage surveys show that, experiences seem to be the things that we all remember more than buying things like bigger houses and fancy cars and, jewelry and all those kinds of things. I think we remember the times we shared together and how we felt when we shared them. And so I think just dedicating a little bit of money, whatever you can, if you can, to experiences, maybe going on a trip, it doesn't have to be expensive or anything like that. I think just enhancing the time that you spend with someone you love.
Steve, I thought it was interesting. You said, don't make it me versus you. Don't make it confrontational. And you said if you can actually come together with your spouse, you can be stronger for it. You believe that to be true. How so?
I think so. I think if you go into the me versus you again, if you've been in a relationship for more than 10 minutes, you know that you don't want to make it I'm right and you're wrong. I think that you've got to compromise like in any relationship, but especially when it comes to money because, it is such an emotional topic. And for many, many reasons, so belief systems, the way we were raised, philosophies of all kinds. But I think that you can't make it me versus you. Otherwise, it's kind of like politics. I mean, as soon as you start demonizing the other side and saying we're right and you're wrong, you're in trouble.
And a lot of times, whether it's the man or the woman, whoever makes more money seems to have more say. And you think that shouldn't be the way it is. You've got to be equal when it comes to financial discussions, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I think you got to really be careful of that one. That's very dangerous. And of course, we know that there's so many stories about, in some cases, even financial abuse, they call it, where someone who makes more money sort of lords it over the partner that, doesn't make quite as much. And boy, I think that's a very, very slippery slope that leads to disaster. So I think you want to be very careful. Leave the emotion out of it. Leave the numbers out of it. Whoever makes more money, maybe it's a stay-at-home mom type of thing where, the mom's raising 4 kids and maybe the dad's out there working. It could be vice versa. But raising the 4 kids, maybe don't get paid, but wow. What a job, John. I wouldn't want that one for anything. That's a lot of work. They should be making $1 million a year doing that one.
Steve, are there any recommendations in terms of percentages of your income that you should put away or that you should invest? Do you have any hard numbers for us, or do you recommend it's all different for each and every couple?
Well, it is different for sure. But after interviewing the rich for 36 years, the self-made wealthy, what they do is they put away at least 20%. They live well below their means, and many of them factually live on. They put away more than 50% of their income. Then, when you reach a place where you're financially independent, you can put away all of it. And of course, that's what the super wealthy do. They don't spend hardly any money that they're earning. They put all of that away. And that's really the ultimate place to be.
You said something here that's easier said than done, because for whatever reason, when we start talking money, it's probably because we know how important it is, things get emotional. And you said keep your emotions out of it. How do you recommend we do that, Steve?
Yeah, I think you look at the numbers. You're right. It is difficult. No question. It's like many things in life. Most things probably. They're easy to say and hard to do. So that's for sure. But I think you have to look at the logical numbers and say, if we spend today, what level of stress must we endure together as a couple tomorrow? And there's a lot to be said for the stress that breaks people up, actually causes divorce. And most of the reasons are money related. So I think we have to look at our spending habits and say, how is this going to affect our relationship tomorrow?
You know, this reminds me a lot about the reason that I go to church is because I want it to be applicable. I want to be able to use it in my life. And the problem with most financial books are I can't seem to apply them. You talk about relationships and how money affects those, and about spending money in the right places to bring you closer. How did you come up with this? What was your personal philosophy? How did you arrive at your personal philosophy on money?
Well, you know, it was really the result of my personal philosophy was really the result of interviewing self-made millionaires, like I said, for 36 years, over 1,300 personal interviews since 1984. And my co-author, Tom Matthews, has spent his entire life in the financial world. And we wanted to write a book that would be applicable so anyone could, like I said, anyone could understand it. And then more importantly, anyone could contact a financial professional and then apply the 7 money milestones. So they didn't have the pressure and the stress that's caused by worrying about money. It's really not necessary if you understand how money works. And that really was the purpose of the book.
And again, How Money Works, that's the title of the book. He is your author, Steve Siebold. Steve, I want to thank you for your expertise. Again, Amazon.com, right? Get that book.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. Steve Siebold, once again, How Money Works, helping out couples, making sure you don't get too confrontational when you talk about your finances. All right, coming up here, let's talk about getting you back to life.